Survivor Series in the modern age triggers nothing more than tantalizing tussles over t-shirts. My brand is better than your brand. It'd be a bit funny and tragic if the end result wasn't so awesome. WWE are sticking with this formula, including this year's amazing iteration, because it works in spite of itself. Since 2016, the Thanksgiving Classic has become a bit of a revived entity in the pay-per-view calendar. There's champion versus champion matches with no championships on the line. There's main events just sort of chucked together the week of, and there's elimination matches for over nothing more than days of the week. After lighting the fuse for the most profitable period in company history in 1997, the November Super Show also later played host to a moment that foreshadowed the wheels falling off completely. I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and this is how this moment killed WWE's Attitude Era. So first off, to set the scene, we start with tires screeching as a car speeds out of the historic Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan, with a decimated top drawer left behind. Yes, Stone Cold Steve Austin had been felled after chasing Triple H into the car park just hours ahead of their scheduled triple threat main event for the WWE Championship, which also featured the only man electrifying enough to share the spotlight. What rotten luck, eh? Well, obviously not. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock versus Triple H was categorically the biggest match the WWE could book in November 1999. And the company knew as much. They were riding a commercial and creative wave so hard and high that even the recent departure of Attitude Era architect Vince Russo couldn't set them back. Look, WWE were thriving in a way that even Vince McMahon at his most optimistic daren't have even dreamt of just 2 years earlier. The Montreal Screwjob was a watershed moment in the lives of McMahon, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, but also was kind of a landmark and a checkpoint for everything unexpectedly falling into place for an organization that had been on the back foot for years. An act born out of callous corporate cruelty created a company icon, and I cannot tell you how many takes that has taken. It created a company icon in Mr. McMahon, just as Stone Cold Steve Austin was raging against the machine. It was the perfect pro wrestling happenstance, and time again, WWE satisfied customer thirst with payoff after exhilarating payoff. And then at the height of their dominance, and to bring it all back to where we started in this video, they pulled off another screw job. So let's go back to Detroit, the Motor City, for the attempted vehicular homicide of Stone Cold Steve Austin. You see, before the rattlesnake was mown down in that car park, WWE already knew they would have to flatten the hopes and desires of their paying fan base thanks to his bothersome neck. 8 whole days, in fact, is the bare minimum of how long they knew in advance. Yes, according to reports, the company knew 8 full days ahead of their 1999 Thanksgiving Classic that Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't going to be able to go, and yet left no clues on the night itself. Honestly, watching the last couple of weeks of television and all the video packages made to promote Survivor Series is some sort of maddening self-torture. I went back to watch it just to make sure I hadn't remembered it wrong. But no, despite the fact that they allegedly knew all about the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin was not going to be medically cleared on this card, they continued promoting it. Don't forget, it's going to be happening Survivor Series 1999. No, it's not. And you know it, you bastards. Go back and watch it. They talk up this enormous showdown between the 3 most powerful forces in the company, even though they know it's not happening. And they talk about it so much that they completely forget about the rest of the card. Survivor Series 1999 is 20 years old this year, but it still sends shivers down the spine from those who can remember it at the time, or even worse, those who decide to watch it back on the network. don't do it to yourself. Save yourself $9.99. Do you remember a while back, Vince McMahon tried to kill off Survivor Series? I think it was around 2010. Well, just take a look at what he thought was acceptable over a decade earlier. Let's have a look, shall we? Here we go. Starting off on the pre-show, bantering off his own team, the Big Show would go on to defeat Viscera, Albert, the Big Boss Man, and Mideon in a match kept short for reasons that would become apparent later. Then there's the 8-woman tag match. Yes, this was beyond pitiful and won by Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah in 1999. Whilst a Survivor Series match pitting Gangrel, Steve Blackman, Mark Henry and Val Venus against the British Bulldog and the Mean Street Posse might be the most bizarre in concept, lineup and execution in the show's entire history. Bizarre because, well, Davey Boy Smith was in it, but then he was also involved in a match with dog shit. So, I'll tell you what, from dog shit to bullshit, let's circle back to Stone Cold Steve Austin getting hit by a car. The hows and whys of that moment and how it all played out less than one wild year later. In summary, WWE sold an entire pay-per-view on one match they had absolutely no intention of delivering. And sod all else on that card too. You see, for all the carnage and the chaos of the beloved Attitude Era, welching on their output wasn't something the company made a habit of, just as it isn't now. Vince McMahon's outlook has been the same then, now, and forever. Now, if Rikishi feels like a bit of a footnote in this story, it's because originally he wasn't meant to be anywhere near it. Billy Gunn, you'll notice if you watch it all back, was nowhere to be seen around all that brawl between DX and Stone Cold Steve Austin and the subsequent clattering with a car. The Rock himself would have been an easy tie-in as well if the company had ever decided to try and turn the Great One. Good luck with that, whenever the Rattlesnake's real-life neck surgery recovery had taken place. Rikishi infamously did it for The Rock before the company just retconned all that hot bollocks, and he did it for Triple H instead. Let me make something very clear before we go any further though. The Survivor Series 1999 attack didn't kill the Attitude Era in and of itself, but it was the first shot fired by a firing squad that left it riddled with bullets. Whilst Austin was convalescing at home, WWE somehow grew beyond prior heights to even bigger ones. Discounting the 2018 Saudi Arabia cash and the unimaginable television rights fees the company now command, the year 2000, by the old metrics at least, was the most profitable time in the company's history. And furthermore, the television abso-bloody-lutely ruled. Hunter and The Rock had graduated to being top-liners on their own terms and had themselves a money-shitting mega feud, and the mid-card soared under the watchful eye of head writer Chris Kresge too. There's a lot of love here at What Culture Towers for Chris Kresge and all the great stuff he did within the Attitude Era, but he was soon replaced by Stephanie McMahon right around the time that Mick Foley fingered the Giant Samoan, not like that, for the wrestling crime of the century. They tried and, let's be honest, failed to pay off the biggest whodunit in a generation. And everybody got caught up in the subsequent detritus. Rikishi's awesome babyface run was abruptly abandoned for a push that never materialized. Well, if you don't count the one that he got off the top of the cell at least. And Austin and Rock were cooled exponentially by working programs with him that kind of felt like backward steps. The Rattlesnake's run in particular was so tepid that his fiscally misjudged WrestleMania X7 heel turn genuinely seemed like the sensible solution. Triple H, well, he escaped the worst of it, to be honest, but then again, he still goes over on pay-per-views today, so was there ever really in doubt? So, in summary, the next time your YouTube trigger fingers cause you to ask exactly
what about the Attitude Era
during another PG Survivor Series, although this year's inclusion with NXT was absolutely awesome, just remember, WWE could never really handle it anyway. The shows, by another McManus bloody miracle, are better off out of their control than in it. So there you have it. That is how this moment killed WWE's Attitude Era. Do you agree? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts, where we review Raw, SmackDown, the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. My thanks to Michael Hamflett for writing this wonderful editorial. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.
What about the Attitude Era? What about the Attitude Era? What about the Attitude Era? What about the Attitude Era?